I am not a snob about being a Denver native. I never brag about the cumulative elevation gain of my hiking or the fact that I knew how to gut a fish before I knew how to open a can of tuna. I don't correct people when they say Buena Vista instead of Buena Vista, which is, by the way, how the town voted to pronounce it in 1879. I don't drive a Subaru. And my not Subaru definitely does not have a Colorado native bumper sticker. It turns out there's a lot of people in my life who were not born in Denver, but whom I like very much. Like my own child who was born in LA. Like the entire clergy team. And Steve Brodsky has lived in Colorado longer than I've been alive, so I've got no leg to stand on there. Probably, that was so satisfying. Probably very many of you come from other places and you belong here, whether you were born here or you just arrived. I will say, there's one thing that does set us longtime Denverites apart, and that is the mountains. It's not that we love or appreciate or even climb them any differently, although some of us perhaps a little more adept at driving in them. It's that we feel them. I feel the mountains all the time. I know where they are even when I can't see them, which means I always know which way I'm facing and in what direction I need to go next. It's like another form of gravity. In fact, the absence of the mountains is one of the most overwhelming parts of being in another city for me. I have this vivid memory of being in an interview in New York City, which is a place that I find wildly intimidating on a good day. And I had just been given directions to take the elevator down from the 82nd floor and exit onto Lexington Avenue and then walk west toward East 52nd Street. What? I have just been burped out of a revolving door into a horde of pedestrians walking so fast, and you are telling me that one way is East 53rd Street and the other way is East 52nd Street, and I'll tell you 9 times out of 10, I'm gonna walk the wrong way until I get close enough to read the street sign, and then I'll find out that I have to double back because in New York City, I have no gravity, no pull for the right direction. I have no mountains. That moment, the moment I dread, that split second of panic out of the revolving doors, which way? And I'll tell you, I don't just feel that panic in New York City because navigating life often feels to me like trying to navigate Manhattan. It's crowded. Everybody else's trash is on the sidewalk. There are no mountains. And I have no idea what direction I'm facing. This is one of the parts of being an adult that makes me feel like I'm not adult enough. I thought there would always be mountains, that growing up would come with a built-in compass, because without that gravity of the mountains and the certainty in my guts, how do I do this? How do I navigate? I didn't expect to spend so much of my life wondering if I'm lost. There are so many moments of decision and indecision, and honestly, East 52nd Street is the least of my worries. Moving through the world as a parent and daughter, sister, rabbi, colleague, friend requires so many minute moments of navigation. And there are rarely mountains or maps. So I'm never quite sure if I'm doing it right. If I'm doing what's right for my kid, if I'm showing up the right way for the people I love, if I'm making the right choices or choosing the right paths, and so I wander around looking for mountains, wondering if I'm lost, hoping my instincts are leading me, if not in the right direction, at least toward a legible street sign so that I will eventually know if I'm supposed to double back. That wandering, it's not a new idea for us. From the very moment that Abraham leaves his father's house for a land that God promises to show him, we have been a people on the move. And we rarely know where that journey is going to take us. Now, God does eventually get Abraham to the land that he shows him, and the Israelites do eventually make it across the desert from Egypt 40 years later. But that road that we wander, it is never an easy one. According to our sages, the Israelites made 42 stops on their 40-year journey through the desert, and the Torah names every single one of those 42 stops. Now, some of the sages think that the Torah lists them all just so we know what a schlep the whole thing was, which honestly, that tracks because the Israelites whine the entire time. But other sages say that every single one of those stops is named because every single one of them mattered. That eventually, they made it to the banks of the Jordan and the border of the Promised Land, and it was one hell of a trek. And every time they stopped, every time they got tired or got lost, they got threatened or got thirsty, every time they encountered disease or disappointment, they mark that stop in our text until they had a full record of where they had been. Lay out those 42 stops, and you have a perfect map of how to get from Egypt to Israel in exactly 40 years. That's the good thing about maps. They provide us with that sense of direction and security, the comfort of knowing which way is the right way and which way is the wrong way. But someone has to make that map in the first place. And then it's a record of where they went and what they saw. Those Israelites didn't start with it, they made it as they wandered. And we are grateful because we get to see it and use that map and learn from it when we study Torah, but I'm not so sure that it helped them with their journey. Me? I want my map at the beginning. Not like the Israelites. I want to know what my 42 stops are going to be ahead of time. I don't want to wander to guess and try and fail. I want to know. I don't want to be lost in the desert or in Manhattan or in life. If I start out with the map, then I'll know that I'm on the right path, that I'm doing it right. Right? I'll know that I'm a good mom and a good rabbi, a good daughter and a good friend. I'll know that my choices are good enough, that my instincts are good enough, that I'm good enough, that I'm enough. Because that's really what's at the core of this. I want the map so that I don't mess up the journey. I want to follow someone else's path. They already know how to do it, and I'm a little scared. And sometimes I don't have the confidence I need when I'm out on my own, and so I wander, and then I wonder if I have what it takes. All I can think about is that I have gone the wrong way before. And I'm guessing you have too. That a wrong turn or a hard time made you stop and look around. That you have wondered if you belonged or if you were good enough. If people were looking at you or judging you. I'm guessing that you're also filled with doubt sometimes. in your place, your direction, your identity, your authenticity. I'm guessing that you've also had moments of pain or failure, moments where you ended up somewhere that you didn't mean to be, somewhere you didn't want to be. I have had plenty of those moments. And instead of believing that I know what to do, that I am more than this one unwanted moment, I find myself frozen on a busy sidewalk in Manhattan, lost in the rush of strangers and full of doubt and desperately wishing for home and for the mountains. Because the mountains are better than a map. That map tells me how someone else thinks I should go, how they went. The mountains tell me that I already have everything I need to figure it out on my own. In Psalm 121, we say, Esa enai el heharim me'ayin yavo ezri. Means I lift my eyes to the mountains. From where will my help come? From the mountains. They ground me. Their gravity pulls me and turns me and orients me. They're that way. And it's not a coincidence. It's science. Don't ask me to explain it, but it turns out that Sir Isaac Newton, who had a lot of questions about why apples never fall up from trees, but only fall down, also found that gravity is partly dependent on mass. Objects with more mass experience a stronger gravitational pull. Places with more mass, like mountains, have stronger gravitational forces. It makes sense that we can literally feel the mountains. And regardless of whether you've been here long enough to feel the direction of the mountains yet, there's a good chance you will. Because as Sir Isaac Newton will also tell you, gravity is not a choice. It's not subjective or selective. You don't have to qualify for it. You don't get to opt in to whether you want to feel the magnetic pull of the earth. You don't have to think about it. You never even have to notice it. It just is. Gravity won't let you float away or get lost. It's got you. Regardless of who you are, how you look, what you wear, who you love, what you say, what mistakes you've made, what college you get into, how much money you make, it's got you. Exactly as you are in this moment, with all of your beauty and all of your flaws, with every strength and every gift and every fault. Your feet are firmly planted in this ground. Your body still rests in that chair. You're still here. What would it be like if we lived like that all the time? If we really believed those mountains, believed what gravity was trying to tell us, that without qualification, every single one of us deserves to be held to the earth, that we are deeply worthy of the force that it takes to keep us here, that just by existing, we're enough, that we're enough, even if it doesn't always feel like it. That we're enough if we're not perfect. We're enough if we struggle and have setbacks and we screw up, because we do and we will. And still, we have yet to float away because we're enough. Enough to stay here, to be held here, rooted here, to be safe here. What if we let that worthiness, our right to gravity, reassure us that as much as we may want it, we don't need a map to tell us where to go or how to get there? We don't need someone else to lead us out if we find ourselves wandering through this new year in the desert, in Manhattan. We can figure it out. It may take a couple of wrong turns. Maybe you're like my dad. And when you get lost, you don't even try to get back on track. You just go back home and start again. That's cool. If we get lost, it's okay because we can handle it. It's not the map we need to navigate our lives. It's the confidence to know that we deserve to be on the journey, no matter how long it takes or how many times we have to start and go home and start over. We deserve to be here tonight celebrating Rosh Hashanah at the base of these mountains, held together by a force that doesn't differentiate and doesn't discriminate, but accepts us for who we are in this moment, in this new year, because we are enough. The Talmud teaches us that we say a blessing over creation when we see the mountains, when we see something magnificent out in nature, and that blessing, we say it in present tense. It's happening right now. Baruch atah Adonai oseh ma'aseh v'reshit. We say, blessed are you, Adonai, who is making these works of creation, who creates each of us in the image of that God who is brilliant enough to make those mountains. May we see in each other and in ourselves only that brilliance, only the possibilities of what might be created next. May we be confident and proud and moved to continue that work of creation. We have what it takes. We are enough. Shana Tova.